So hi, I'm Mridula. I'm in the final stages of my 4th year of undergrad. I'm studying neuroscience with minors in philosophy and Buddhism, mental health, and psychology, and that was a collection of programs that I chose because I'm super interested in meditation, and I know that these are the ingredients that make up a compelling and interdisciplinary exploration of meditation. So I had a personal practice in high school, and that was like a game changer for me in the last couple of years of my high school experience, because I was academically stressed and taking myself way too seriously, and so having that outlet was personally really therapeutic. And also, the more I would learn about it from a scholarly perspective, I realized so many different disciplines have something interesting and important to say about meditation, and that really compelled me, because I loved every subject in high school and didn't want to give up anything when I got to university. And I thought, yeah, studying this, it would be a win-win for me. I could find insight that would creep into my own life and also satisfy all this curiosity that I had. Yeah, so many things that I could say about how meditation has made my life richer. First, I'm called to talk about how I think it's strengthened my sense of agency over my thoughts. A scary thought or an unkind thought is just a thought, and to believe that deeply has been just a game changer, right? That I can let that thought pass, and I can wait for a better, more wholesome one, and maybe latch onto that. So that agency, it's valuable when I'm sitting down to study and I don't want to do it. It's also valuable when I'm having a tough conversation with a friend. And I think it's also made me just really excited to be alive. The fact that I'm speaking and sensing right now, and that my body's doing this autonomously without need for my conscious input, if I can schedule in a slot every day to just be mind blown about that, then I think I'm better for it. So meditation is definitely one way for me to do that, is to recognize I'm breathing constantly, and my body's just doing all these things, and so to invite awe and wonder at what we maybe take for granted, for sure. And then when I think about the impact that the BPMH program has had on me, it's to incentivize thinking this way, because there are a lot of incentives to not think this way. And you go about your academic life, and the messaging might be just make sure you get a good mark on the midterm and then the final, and you're just consumed with the routine of it all. And it's so easy for that joy and that wonder and awe to slip through the cracks. I think having a program like BPMH and having assignments in which I'm told meditate and reflect on that, what was that like, is an important message about what's important, essentially, in a somewhat cyclical way there. So I'm incredibly grateful to the BPMH program for strengthening those habits when there were a lot of conditions that could have derailed those habits in the university setting. I realized that studying meditation is a way of studying everything in some way. So if you're studying attention, your emotion, the way that you relate to your thoughts, the world, other people, that is a proxy for just about anything under the sun, is what I find. That's the most domain general set of ideas or concepts that you could wrestle with. And so inevitably, I think that calls for a lot of disciplines to come in and join the dialogue, because they have been doing this for a long time, right? Philosophy and philosophers have been talking about consciousness for a very long time, and now we have neuroscientists also trying to understand what the neural traces are of these subjects, because it only makes sense that it sparks a lot of these disciplines' curiosity, because it's so fundamental and so intrinsic to our experience. So I've taken, I think the first one I took was BPM 232, which is the standard introduction to Buddhist psychology. I've taken a number of courses with Ellie Weisbaum, so that includes the scientific investigation of meditation. I think it's advanced or scientific methods, something like that, related to meditation. And then there's also the theory-heavy side, so a strong and robust introduction to the Plum Village style meditation practices. And that course is uniquely co-taught with a Buddhist monk, which also so cool to have that perspective in the academic setting. So each of the, and also I think I've taken BPM 335, which is meditation in the body. So I think this harkens back to what I was talking about earlier in terms of all these disciplines having something valuable to contribute. I think when you think about meditation, each of those courses has like a unique a handhold or foothold on meditation. So you have like understanding its value through direct practice in the course that's co-taught with Brother Faplin. And then with like the theoretical side, you can understand how meditation has been understood within like contemplative traditions, and then also how those contemplative traditions have informed modern science in BPM 335. So it's, when you have all these disciplines like converging on something, it's interesting to see like their points of similarity and then also their points of tension and dissimilarity. And if there is a tension, that's like a sign that there's something there to like look further into. And those moments I think I've also really appreciated when I'm able to hold two courses that I'm taking in tandem. Yeah. One tension that I'd say comes up when you have these different disciplines is like, so what's the point of meditating? I think all of these perspectives will place emphases on certain things over others. So a scientist might say, well, we have strong and compelling data that it's good for your well-being and it's improving like mental health measures. And then from a Buddhist perspective, you might get, well, that's not actually the point of meditation. That's not why you should meditate. Maybe the reason is that it's intrinsically good to be present and to wake up to the reality of your existence and your life and all the conditions that have shaped your practice. And you will also get like a diversity of thinkers. So there might be, even within the Buddhist tradition, so you have the Plum Village perspective, and we've also like in the BPM 232, that like introductory course, we also explore like Tibetan practices and we explore Zen practices. I think one of my aims in like developing this richer understanding of meditation, its implications, is also like to surprise myself with the applications that might emerge from this. And that there's definitely evidence for that in like my own journey. So the project that I'm working on right now is I've developed a meditative museum experience for the Royal Ontario Museum, and this would have never happened had I not taken all of these BPM courses that offered me like unique insights that I was able to integrate into this program itself. So for sure, I think the fact that I was able to give myself the freedom to like create something like this is testament to the foundation that the courses I've taken through the BPM program have given me, and also like the confidence that they've given their students to see how these implications can be translated into the world. The way that I typically take notes in a class is I'll have like the notes in terms of just the content, and then the second section of my notes are like my own thoughts, comments, and responses to what I'm hearing, and I try to do both. And I find that like in that second section, in the BPM courses, I'm like drawing upon all of my experiences. So it's way more personal than it would be in some of my other, like, I'm taking a neuroimaging class right now, for instance. So in those classes, I'm processing the content in like a distanced way, whereas with BPM, I think like if you pulled out my notes as data, you would find that I am bringing more of myself to those courses and feel like that's a valuable way of engaging with the courses. So the personal insights I'm like using as small case studies, anecdotes, things that have happened in my life. I'm using that to support my understanding in these courses, and I think that like that's ushered in lots of different insights. It's not extreme, like it's not overly just positive or enthusiastic, only spotting connections, but like going back to those tensions, sometimes I am like writing that down, like, actually I think I disagree with this because from Buddhist like scriptures we see a different argument to be made, or that like when you're in the more theory-based class you're like, but I feel like the scientific data on this isn't great, so I actually will like put a pin in this. It always like catches me by surprise how like the reflections that I will do for an assignment, like have this tendency of coming back, resurfacing later in my life. So I might have taken a class in second year and done a meditation log and wrote down reflections, and like a line that I put in there was like a seed for a more extended reflection later on. You have this, it's just, you don't have an insight once and it like, that's the end of it. It doesn't have like a half-life because it's reborn in some ways, the ideas and thoughts that we have. And those like ideas become like themes in my life. So I think early insights in just assignments or reflections have come to be like more profound and prominent themes in terms of like what I spend my 24 hours thinking about. Half of that is sleep, but like, yeah, like what do I spend my time with is, it might have started as just like a reflection or like one note that I jotted down in a course. I think I'd be curious to like have more courses on contemplative traditions that aren't Buddhist. So in contemplative science, which is probably like the general way of describing my core interest, it could be really interesting to see how Buddhist traditions compare to other cultures' contemplative practices and how they go about it, how they structure it. Because in like our scientific understanding of meditation, we do have like a Buddhist slant because contemplative practice is so central to it. But I don't think that's only attributable to like the tradition itself, but also just the quirks of the people that started studying this. They might have been interested in Buddhism, and they continue to like build their communities, and so it's like small, random, stochastic characteristics can have ripple effects in the way that like a field progresses, right? So I think this is one moment we can take stock and say like, okay, so what contemplative practices exist in other traditions, or maybe not even like religious traditions. So what about in arts? So like that's something that's very interesting to me right now because I'm working in a museum space and I'm thinking a lot of people have this precedent for contemplating in front of art. So what are the different insights that we can glean from that, for instance? So that's something I would like to see more. So speaking of like quirks, one of mine was that like in high school I started reading Richard Dawkins and Christopher Hitchens, and these like, they call themselves the Four Horsemen, right? And so like that, I had that voice in my head saying like, religion, you should be a little careful. You might get hurt without realizing. But now I'm in a religious studies course. I just took a museums and material religion course. I also took a history of Buddhist meditation course within the religious tradition. So I think that's also like testament to the growth that the program has helped inculcate in me, is that I feel more comfortable and like safe learning from religious perspectives because I don't have that like bias going into it. Yeah. It's cool, I think, for me to notice how like the work that an individual puts into like their wellness can ripple into their community. So I'll see this with like just friends who happen to be in the BPM program interacting with other friends or friends from outside the BPM program. And so I can think of like spaces in residence, for instance, where someone who is a BPM student interacting with other students, and I can just see like the comfort and ease that they have improve like the harmony that's in that community. And so for sure I think I see that, like that the way that like the program prioritizes community and like helps build confident students who like value their wellness. I think now I'm like thinking about my notes. I remember at some point saying like, we got to be more like Karens about our wellness. So like that was my internet slang way of saying like, we need to be on it with our wellness. Like that is a priority. And I just love spending time with students who are that way, right? I don't think that means like being attached to your wellness, expecting that every single moment of your life is going to be well, but to be insistent and to demand, like in my finite life, I want to be well. And I've just noticed that this program like nurtures that in students. And I really like that when I see other students like model that, right? at U of T, sometimes you'll like get into competitions about like how unwell you are. Like I only slept an hour, I only slept this, like, and so to laugh, have those interactions and realize like, but that's not actually what I want for myself, or like, I don't think that's how I want to structure my university experience. Like having the value of being well, like nurtured, I can see has consequences for that person's life, but also the model that they're setting for their communities. Yeah. And I feel like a lot of our small talk at U of T is built on like complaining, for good reason, right? There are things to complain about, and I'm always like careful to like make this criticism because I don't want to diminish anyone's suffering. But I think like a decision that I made for myself was I want a little bit more balance in how I choose to like interact with a peer in class. Is I don't want the only like source of our conversations to be like our suffering in the moment. Like, what are you interested in? Did you like that? So I think I'm quite intentional about like diversifying what our small talk is built on, even at U of T, because there's this culture of stress. So I was raised Hindu, and I would say like modern Hinduism, at least like my experience of it, it's kind of divorced from its contemplative roots. You have prayer when you go to the temple, but like I wasn't taught to meditate from my religious upbringing, and so I like stumbled on it. I downloaded an app actually, so I think you're gonna get more people in increasing generations where like an app or like some digital means was their entry into meditation, but then I quickly like realized there's so many rich traditions that are trying to inculcate this. And I think when I was like the early days of learning about meditation, what it's meant to grow in people, I could like retroactively fit that onto the things that I admired in the people around me. So like I had teachers who were super present, like observant and patient, and a number of contemplative values that like I valued. I just didn't have like a tidy way of like holding those together, and discovering contemplative traditions for me was like, okay. So I think like there is one category that like all of these values seems to fit under.